Live.
All right, that's good, right? That's much better than before. Yes.
The
It's good,
doctor
right?
is in.
Hello today to our follow-up episode from our yesterday's episode, where I haven't been there, but I will get into that later on. And I hope you all had a good time this weekend. And yesterday we talked a little bit about the big current occurrings in big tech. And today we talk a little bit about the smaller things and also something from the past. And without any further instruction, I straight get to the news, or at least the
Well.
part of the news that were left out yesterday, right?
Hang on.
But I'm moving on, as you see.
We have forgotten one thing that we always do. We start the episode with the episode identification number. This is episode 31, part 2 of a 2-part episode. And you're watching or listening to This Week in MeteorJS, a weekly news segment of the MeteorJS Dispatches podcast aimed at both new and returning MeteorJS users. Our program is brought to you by MeteorJS community ambassadors who share information, events, activities, and other newsworthy items with you. I am your host, Alim Ghaffar, streaming from the Outer Boroughs with Good Eyes in New York. And
And I'm Jan Küster, today also streaming with Good Eyes from Germany.
All right. And as you said, let's walk right into the news.
Yeah. So the first thing, as we talked like 1 week ago or something, you notice that there are now many runtimes coming up in JavaScript, and it's not the last ones that came up. And while the framework inflation has gone, we're now entering the phase of the runtime inflation, I think, right? And so I've opened something to share with you on my screen, if you can activate that.
Sure. I will put it right up onto the stage.
Yes.
And there we go.
So there's an interesting article on some runtime we didn't cover yet because there are so many out there. And there is one LLRT, the low latency JavaScript runtime written in Rust, which has been released in October 23. And this article is interesting because it does some benchmarking on actually the V8 from Node and these supposed to be faster runtimes. And I don't want to spoiler you. We will put that article into the into the links into this description so you can read about it yourself. I just say there's one thing very interesting. This LLRT uses Quick.js, which is a JavaScript engine with the size of below 1 megabyte, and the LLRT itself is written in Rust. And I just give you one input for those who don't understand the difference between engine and runtime. So the engine is the very basis of JavaScript, like the heap and the call stack and all that stuff. And the runtime is everything that surrounds it. All these very important environment APIs, like Node.js, for example, provides FS and the process and everything around that. And so there are all these different engines now, Bond, and all that stuff. Oh, you have a question?
I do. So in terms of understanding the engine, is the engine responsible for parsing the JavaScript code?
Yeah, the engine is actually the one that does all the just-in-time compilation, basically, to make this interpretable, because JavaScript's interpreted, and then everything that codes run through gets actually just-in-time compiled into some bytecode, executed, and then into the next step, right? And then, of course, if you have some objects, things get allocated or put on the heap. Then you have functions to be called, get put on the call stack. Some of you have seen this before. Max call size exceeded. That's when the call stack's maximum size gets flown over with a recursive function or something like this. And the runtime is actually beyond that. The runtime is everything around that engine. It's everything the engine can be integrated in. And yeah,
So
but
just for clarification, because I'm not sure about the distinction myself. So is the runtime the thing that gives you the ability for the engine to interact with the environment in some way? And when I say the environment, it's the development environment or the operating environment.
Of course, for example, you could have the V8 engine and you execute it in the Chrome browser, then your runtime is basically the Chrome browser.
Okay.
But you can also use the V8 engine and execute it in Node. That's basically what's happening, right? So Node uses the V8 engine, and the Chrome browser uses the Chrome browser uses it as well. And they have, of course, totally different environmental APIs and everything they provide. But just coming back to this article, it's very interesting because usually the premises of these new low latency runtimes and also this QuickJS engine, all that stuff, is usually it's all fast, or in this time it's small, and you should think about a lot of these things there, what to do with it. Most issues arise around compatibility. You will not be able to run anything from Meteor or anything as well from other modern frameworks there without any issues, because it's all usually in development, even with Bun, which is one of the more mature alternative engines, or Dino, which is even more mature than Bun. You will not be able to run everything you expect as a node one-on-one. And again, I will not spoiler the performance things. You will not imagine what's coming up there. It's really interesting.
So it's worth a read. Okay. Well, I'll get back. Is there anything else? I mean, I've asked my questions. I think I've had my interaction here. I don't have anything more to add. I don't know if there's anybody in the chat right now. I'm not looking there, so maybe I should take a look. But I think it's crickets today, because we really didn't publicize this at all. We did mention that we're doing it today, but we've had to make some adjustments on the time, and rather than like frustrate people again and again with changes, we're doing it this way. Yeah, so I don't have any other ideas or input on this other than to just observe that as much as we'd like to see these variants stop, people seem really interested in putting out new and alternative builds. And I guess there are lots of people that have different ideas about how these runtimes should be designed, or how these frameworks, when we're talking about frameworks, should be designed, and what trade-offs are material and what are not. And so when they don't see it in something that they have, or that is available to them from the open source community, or even private source, they will go out and try to build something different.
I think there's one factor to consider, though. If we have an emerging, increasing amount of runtimes, then it will be much more important in the future for open source projects and libraries to be runtime independent. That also, which also means that you have to be implemented totally different. Like you can't make the assumption that things are there that are there in Node, or that are there from the browser. I mean, this is nowadays already the case, but in the end, this was why things like Browserify existed, right? It took Node APIs and made them available in the browser, but just consider making this available for all the runtimes out there. It's crazy. So in the end, you may end up writing packages that have to be able to run anywhere, and that's a much different challenge than you might expect.
I think we're going to worry about this when there's significant progress in terms of ground covered by some of these alternatives getting sufficient following behind it. And at that point, we worry about fragmentation. But at this point, I think what I've noticed is that the Node team seems to be picking up signals from the things that seem important to people that are being put into Dino and Bun, and are saying, all right, let's see what we can do to improve the V8 runtime and make it better, the V8 engine and the runtime itself. So who knows? Who knows how this is going to go? I think everybody's that's got a. I think the people that have a vested interest in the current crop of runtimes that are out there are very well aware of the fact that if there is a significant competitor, it could cannibalize in some ways, but it also could create a lot of compatibility issues along the way. And I think the front end folks don't really want to have to deal with, a lot of variance either, because it's just more code, more shims that are going to have to get written, more polyfills that are going to have to be created in order to make things work. And nobody wants to go back to those days, I don't think.
Go those days, exactly. And
right?
because we're talking about those days, those old days, we're talking even about days before those days, I think it's a good time to move to the next point, which is also about the old days, right?
Yeah, it's one of the things I think that's very, very interesting is we're in this technology space that we're in is a very, very young space by comparison to many, many others. And because of this, we are such a forward-thinking profession that we often don't reflect backwards. We're thinking about tomorrow. We're building for tomorrow. We're working today so that we can take the things that we imagine that don't exist yet, that are part of that world of tomorrow, and we're working towards building towards it. But every now and then, when you stop and you reflect back, you find out that as far as we think we've come, we really haven't gone that far at all. And in the case of AI, and AI is the big thing today, AI has been dreamt about for a very, very long time. It is one of those things that has been replete as part of science fiction going back hundreds of years. But even now, though, we'll find out that there are events that happened with luminaries from this field that might include others. And while we think that this field is really progressive now, and now we're starting to bring technologists and humanities folks together to kind of talk about the impact of AI on society and fairness and bias, it turns out that there was a seminal group of people that were doing this even before that, even before there was a digital computer. And do we have a link for this? Do we have the link available? Yeah. So these recently, the what is this? What was the organization again? I'm having a trouble. I apologize about this. But recently, I think it was something obscura. Do you remember what the? Why do I not have that in my notes? Well, recently, a draft paper of Joseph Weizenbaum's notes for the ELIZA program. And if you've played with it, and if you've been in computer science, you may have had this as something that was mentioned in passing for AI, as a tool that was used to evaluate. It was one of the first chatbots, so to speak, that was used to try to figure out whether or not it could pass the Turing test. And it's a little program that acts as a psychologist, where you state what your problems are, and then it talks back to you. And it's a really effective little program. For a very long time, there were people that thought that when they talked to it, it was actually a person. It uses a small algorithm, right? What it does is it basically takes the last thing that you said and reflects it back to you in a question, and continues that way in a conversation. And some people get fooled by it, and some people realize very quickly that it's not. This has given rise to a number of chatbot challenges that have happened over the years, all in the stead of pushing towards general artificial intelligence, and trying to find something that people believe is human. What's really cool is that we have here the notes of the person who thought up this program, who thought about how it was going to work. It's really, in a sense, a set of requirements and ideas and thoughts about how this program should perform. And Kuster, you're into this stuff too, right?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's very interesting. If you read that document, it looks rather like an RFC, like a
Yeah.
request for comments, than what you usually see today when we have designed something like this. So there's much of natural language text used to describe it as more as human as possible. Lots of comments, lots of detailed instructions, and only one one architecture.
Diagram, flowchart.
Yeah, one diagram, very interesting. And so from that perspective, I think it's
A lot of
it's
a lot of the note includes scenario type descriptions in
yeah,
terms of how you'll interact with it and so on. So he spends a lot of time describing examples of what interactions might look like. And I thought, from the point of view of somebody who writes requirements from time to time, and what, if you are a developer and you might have to write requirements, often textbooks tell you that there's a structure and a way to go about it, and it's very dry. But this really, I think, illustrates this fella, I think, is nothing less than a genius. I mean, I think it's relatively accepted that he's an exceptional person in the field. And you read his notes and you look at it and you see that there are limits to what we can do descriptively about trying to dryly describe how a system or a program will operate. And from time to time, we actually have to get into writing more human-like descriptions about what you would actually do with it as a way of trying to communicate those ideas. So that, to me, is the really interesting part. As a guy who has a degree in English literature and has come from a writing background, eventually going into software development and so on. This is really very cool, because it's the kind of thing. I'll tell you, when I was in high school, I did an experiment, and I ended up winning. It's a research experiment. I ended up getting second place in it, research and development in an energy competition, because my experiment was based on stories that were told by Isaac Asimov in one of his science fiction stories. And it was because he described a scenario. I wanted to build a fuel capability that was based on that, so that it could make that scenario real. And this gives me that feel again, that here's somebody describing something, and it wouldn't be outside the realm of seeing it in a science fiction story, but it's a real application that he ended up building.
And I mean, it's so foundational to everything we see today. And if you consider this being in the 60s, 70s era of computing, where a home computer wasn't even thinkable, right? And but in the end, at that point already, this was such a big event that you have a system. I mean, if it's just reflecting back on you and mimicking, it still had some kind of a natural language component, and that's what's, in my opinion, makes this whole thing feel already real. And this is what these LLMs nowadays make it feel so real, right? That there is some kind of an intelligence just because it can leverage the same language style we do. And that's for me still the core premise of why has gained so much popularity nowadays, right?
I think at the end of the day, this is really a paper on the modality of interactions, right? It's about using dialogue-based systems to to have this encounter and to have this relationship with a computer system. I think one of the other points that he makes in this paper that he writes is the potential educational value that you could get from it, because you are talking to a system and it's reflecting back to you, and it allows for a mentoring engagement of a sorts. I don't think he uses the term mentoring at all in the paper, but it is really interesting. Anyway, for those of you who are interested in old fossily stuff, that is if you're I have someplace on my bookshelf the collected works of Sean Clannon, of Claude Shannon. I just messed that up entirely. And so I like looking at those papers from time to time. Some of them I understand, some of them I don't. And a paper like this is actually very readable and very accessible. So it might be something that you might want to take a look at and learn from. So definitely not like Meteor, but certainly part of our space. All right, I've taken enough time on this. So
no, there is one thing left, and then that's everybody knows the capture test, and we just want to put in that as an interesting resource. So it's r-u-human.com, and you can create a human check, right? And then it allows you to basically send a captcha link. So that's my of course I will not share this with anyone because this is mine now, but this is public basically now, but share this to anyone. I can copy that link, and then I will get verifications if that person I was chatting with is actually a human. So you can copy that and send that to ChatGPT and ask it to challenge this. It's basically just a captcha under the hood, but it's sending the results back to you.
So the next time you're on Tinder and you're not sure, sure what's at the other end, send it over. Send it over.
Then this also,
you might be talking to the Terminator.
Yeah. Or what else? Right.
The Germinator might be the other one.
Right. So coming from that, actually, I just want to talk briefly about why I was putting up that
get them on.
That glasses in the beginning. So yesterday,
safety first,
because yesterday I had an accident on my right eye. So what happened? I was doing some home improvement on my own, and I had a tube of some kind of glue, and it was it was stuck dry, and I pressed on it, and the whole chemicals, it exploded, the tube exploded, and everything went into my right eye. What I had to do is I had to go to the hospital, because this is a serious incident. If that happens to you, you have to go to the hospital, definitely, because they also told me it was perfect, that I immediately washed it out with water and went to the hospital, because there might be traces under the eyelid or somewhere that remain. And why is that so important? And now you know why I have this, because this is now protection gear I'm wearing from on here. Because why is that so important? Because for people like us, the eye is at least the same important as the brain or the hand. These are the three most important, and the mouth because of communication, but these are very important components for us in terms of our job, in terms of our profession. We have to look out for ourselves in order to keep us safe, right?
Yeah.
And because if we can't read, then we have a big issue accessing information. That's basically the core premise of accessibility, right? And here I want to go over to the next topic that is a little bit also related to accessibility, so, and also to LLMs and AI. So today we combine everything again. It's the big circle. The universe is closing again, and we're in the center. Oh my god.
It's the circle of artificial life.
Yeah, it's actually a interesting comment on Quora. There are actually many comments on Quora from Alan Kay, who is one of the pioneers we talked about one other pioneer, and now we talk again and another pioneer, and he's one of the pioneers of what you can call the modern user interface. So everything you see on your screen with Windows and stuff basically came from the times when LNK was at Xerox PARC doing fancy research on user interfaces, and he did also lots of stuff around the premise that computers and programs should be so accessible that even children can use them to learn or to explore the world and all that stuff. And he wrote a comment on the question, and I'm just sharing it again so that you also can see it. He wrote a comment on the question, what does he think about programming and teaching programming with co-pilots and LLMs of today? Alan, you can share the screen if you like. And so it's lots of text, and I don't want to get too deep into it because you should read it. What?
Make it bigger. Make it bigger.
Oh, yeah, of course. So yeah, what does LNK think about programming and teaching programming with copilots and LLMs of today? And the thing is that just saying he has this background, he designed a few programming language and also is considered as the inventor of object-oriented programming and stuff.
He's also considered the father of modern. He's also considered the father of the modern GUI, the windowing interfaces and stuff.
And the thing is that what's really interesting here is I will not spoil you again. We will link the resource. You should read it up yourself. It's really interesting that even such a small text is more insightful than the last 10 blog articles I read this week. He is not talking about things like trust and how trust in the past was much more localized because programs and things were much more localized. But nowadays we have a much bigger issue of trust, also in relation to the Moore's law, and the computation capacity, but also at the same time the whole thing of networking and distributed information, distributed knowledge, and now even LLMs coming into the play. And he goes back on that. Trust me, it's really interesting because he will get back to the promise that the most fundamental things are still not resolved, and they resolve around education, how we teach programming, how we basically value education, and trust, which is also interconnected about both of these things. Because if I assume there is not that level of trust, I must enforce trust by scientific methods, by other means, in order to know I can't trust all the time my senses, and I also can't trust LLMs and all that stuff. So I highly suggest to read through that to get what one of these people see. And it's really interesting that it's not. I'm reading a lot of people with lots of experience in that field, and they're all not that hyped up about all the LLM hype as many people nowadays are. And I can totally understand it because it's just one more technical advancement, and it's not that revolution what people always claim it to be yet. I think you know what I mean. So
I do. You know, I've been following this field for a very, very long time. I remember trying to build an AI was really an expert system with a package called Clips many years ago. The first type of AI project that I ever worked on was at university, and it was a decision tree type application with Prolog, right? And you built like all of these rules and so on. So I would say it's very interesting the amount of natural language stuff that can happen today. And I worked when I was at Speech Cycle. We had a statistical language understanding model that took human spoken words and then tried to give a proper in context response to people when they called on the telephone. and that was hard. And I do see that today these LLMs are much closer, but is it revolutionary? I think you could make a case that it is, but you could also make a case that it's evolutionary.
It's evolutionary, of course,
Yeah.
100%. There's just one thing I think here is missing, and that it's what things that are stated as revolution are currently, in my opinion, just transformation. Like with every technological advancement, or like with I mean, it's still, in my opinion, not a paradigm shift. So that's what I want to say. It's not a paradigm shift that it totally turns around the way AI, or really artificial intelligence, is understood, and it's still machine learning, and it bases on what we feed it. And here's the thing: what I want to say with that, and I think it goes a little bit into what the argument here is. I don't want to 100% say that because I'm not sure. I didn't spoke to him personally, but from how I see things is that if we feed a machine with faulty concepts,
Mhm.
and even if it has some capability of procedures on evaluating that, and some probabilistic models around that, and then putting some natural language on top of all that,
Yeah.
it's still faulty. And I mean, we all know already these problems with image generation, and it's generating images that are even illegal and all that stuff. So and it's the same for other concepts. So it will not help you in learning as long as the learning model we feed it is still broken. You know, that's what I wanted to say. And from my perspective, real AI would immediately say, look, all these teaching models are all broken. I've learned from your last observations of the last 100 years, and I found that here are 5 much different solutions of learning models that would improve everything you ever seen. You know, that's my premise on how a real artificial intelligence would work. But I'm not an AI researcher. Maybe I'm too futuristic here.
Yeah.
I
I think I'll have to read this article because I'm now very curious about what he's talking about and
Yeah.
where he's going with it. And I'll say the two things here, right? I mean, my own intuition tells me this, which is, the way machine learning models work is they're basically optimization engines, right? They are geared towards optimizing for some goal. So if the goal is not a correct one, it'll optimize for it. If it's a correct one, it'll optimize for that also. It really doesn't care. It's just, gradient descent taking you along this path to get the optimal result. And and then of course, these deep learning models are just clusters of that, right? Go ahead.
And it's also what you expect. So I mean, what is prompt engineering? It's just fine tuning your prompting until the result is much more than what you expect.
Yeah.
But with an intelligence, real intelligence, there might be the point. If we talk together, I can tell you as long as I want a certain result, and still it
Right.
might not be what I intend to get from you.
Now, so the thing is, the optimization happens, right? But it's based on the training data, right? And so if the training data is aligned in a certain way, it's going to optimize in that direction, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with this, which is, I think when we're talking about an artificial intelligence, or when we're talking about something that is intelligent, at some point, when we are raised as children, I don't know if there is a core element. I think this has been debated by philosophers and moralists and folks that are experts in religious doctrine, whether or not we're born with an actual sense of the ability to tell right from wrong, right? If we want to just like make it as simple as possible, but having that weighing engine in us that allows us to know something is correct versus incorrect, right? but we are given information, we're given input, we are trained in our environments, right? Our parents, our social, our cultural milieu tells us things that are like, these are acceptable, these are not acceptable things. This is a way to think, this is not a way to think. And we get attuned that way. We are little machines that are brought this way, but we have some individual variability. Some of us accept, and some of us don't. And it's sort of a natural condition that adolescents and teenagers, young people, actually will at some point start questioning all their training data, right? And they question whether or not the position or the field that they stand on is the right one. And we call that rebelling, right?
This is again also a trust issue.
And that is all, I think, part of the learning process, right? It's the, well, I've been given this, let me start rejecting it. Let me try to figure out whether or not this is actually acceptable. And I think when we get to an AI that starts taking a look at its internal data and saying to itself, well, hold on a second, do I really have an accurate impression of the world based on what I've been given, right? I think when you get to that, that's probably when we might say we have a real artificial intelligence. But I don't know if that's what Alan Kay's talking about here. He's actually just talking about teaching programming with copilots and LLMs of today. But it sounds to me like what you were saying is that there are deeper ideas that are being addressed here in his response.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think this is not the last talk on that topic, especially that Copilot and teaching programming, learning programming. I mean, we know for a fact that even in the Meteor community, this whole teaching development and stuff is still a big thing, and some of the community members even doing a business around it right now, and all the time teaching programming and e-learning resources around that are still a huge business because there is a big demand and it's still not 100% solved. It's still not solved, basically.
I think though, as far as those things are concerned, I just see it as an extension of, for instance, auto-completion, right? It's, when you have auto-completion, it helps you along the way, but you still have to have some knowledge and you should have some understanding about the tool that you're using. Auto-completion is not going to necessarily make you a better programmer, or it's not going to let you understand, like, what it is that you're looking at. You can have a series of methods and properties that you're looking at, but, if there's a workflow to how you actually, use each of these implementations in transforming data, and you don't know the process, then the auto-completion is not helping you, right?
Yep. Basically, that's it.
So I think it's again, to me, just another tool. It's a tool that, like all tools, we have to be careful not to put our entire faith in them. We have to understand that tools can break. Tools don't always function the way we expect them. At least that's the way I look at it, right? Because
it's the same with news and any information you can find on the internet, even in books, even in official resources, in unofficial resources. That's I think what he refers to trust and how we deal with it. If it's not localized anymore, but it's a global or a network thing, then you have to adjust your trust, basically.
Well, we get trust in a couple of ways, right? We get trust from just our natural response to others and how we might feel and how we might be raised in terms of looking at others that are not part of our immediate environment. Some people are more trusting than others on the outset. Some people are less so, right? They're very suspicious, more xenophobic. But the other thing too is, we need to evaluate our information that way also, because information is not always, it could be trustworthy today and not trustworthy tomorrow. Milk can spoil, right?
That's also a problem. The more information you have, the more you can't validate everything that flows into
No.
your brain and into your senses. And this is why tools like LLMs are so handy right now, because you can outsource this validation. But again, if you blindly trust this tool to outsource this validation, then you're still vulnerable. On the same level, because the LLM is also not well, it doesn't well know things, and that's a problem. So and I know a few people already from my personal contacts that are taking stuff for granted, and I just told them, like, you can't just
Right.
accept any response that comes out there. That's a nice helper tool, but it's not a source of truth. It's not a source. You can't put it as a source of information. You can't just do it. It's the same with writing code.
Yeah.
You can't just that's just, it's even safer to copy paste Stack Overflow sometimes than get these weird stuff
Right.
running, right?
But there's a way to evaluate some of these things, right? And you can do it based on like your personal experience with it. So in terms of bits of code, what you can do is you can try to compile it and see what happens, and eventually you'll figure out whether or not something is somewhat trustworthy. But there are elements, by the way, even if you do get code that runs, even if you do get code that is expressive enough so that you understand it when you read it, there could be some other failures in that code.
Yeah.
There could be performance failures. There could be
For
security failures, right? There could
or
be,
the domain mapping is totally wrong or something
Yeah.
like this. I mean, it might
there could be-
work in itself perfectly, but it doesn't catch up with the domain or the requirements at all.
there could be convention failures. So
Yep.
you get some code that's generated, you're working with a team, but the code doesn't follow the conventions that the team uses. And so, you may end up trying to use something that, your organization just would not accept. So
I mean,
no, go ahead.
I also just want to say there are many proofs out there that these tools can help you already to build entire interfaces, build entire websites, and all that stuff. That's all cool, but that's all like not facing a complex problem. And we as software engineers, this is why I think I'm still totally safe, because we as software engineers, we have to deal with complex problem solving, and that requires so many aspects that you can even verbalize some of them. Try to get one complex problem verbalized and put it into an LLM. It will be total gibberish, because the half of it, what you verbalize, it is in you will realize, oh my god, there's so much implicit knowledge I gathered over the years, and making this explicit is such a hard task already. And so it's still, it will still take at least a few years to get to that point that we can automate creating complex software that solves complex problems on that level. Still, I will not underestimate it at any level, especially when it comes to all these what you said, optimization tasks.
Sure.
In terms of optimization, it will outperform us in any way.
Just like a calculator does, right? A simple, arithmetic calculator is optimized for arithmetic calculations, and the majority of us will not ever perform as well as one of those things. But I don't think that it replaces us necessarily. It might replace that function, right? In terms of what we might rely on. We might not rely on our brains to do some brute force calculations, doing square roots, for instance. But do we really need to? I mean, there are other things that we can do, and there are other things that we have done. So I do remember reading that there used to be a role of a person called a calculator at one time in society, and that doesn't exist. So it sucks for them.
I mean, the thing is, a calculator always knows the what, how to process the square root of 3. It will take ages until I get to the square root of 3 by hand. But
I know,
the calculator
exactly.
knows what. But the calculator, and so does the LLM. They never know why.
So far, so far.
But that's what I mean when I talk about separating a machine learning system from a pure AI, in my opinion.
It's interesting. So let me ask you, just to kind of sum it up, what does Alan Kay think about programming teaching with these tools? Does he think that it's a bad thing? Does he think it's a good thing? Does he even think it's a thing?
Yeah, I said I didn't want to spoiler it. I mean, we talked around it all the time. I didn't want to spoiler it, but basically, in short, he think it wouldn't be a good thing at all. But again, it goes back down to much deeper levels of society, of learning and
Right.
things and trust again. Yeah, and he also said, I don't think the systems exhibited today are to be he doesn't think they
because
are
of
to
his
be
trustworthiness. Right.
Huh?
So okay, so that's it. I think the thing here is, how he evolves his thinking into, why he doesn't think that they're that there's something that we should be using or thinking about or relying on. And you said trustworthiness is part of it. I think there is actually a whole discussion of what trust is, right? Because I think I've shared a little bit, how I think about trust, but Alan Kay is much smarter than I am, and I'm sure he has he's probably thought about it much deeper, much longer than I have, and he probably has a well-reasoned view of this, and it's probably worth reading.
And he started from a total different level.
Can't all be Alan Kay, right?
But it's interesting. So what I didn't expect is on Quora to have him answering a lot of stuff. I assume it's not, I mean, just by the writing style and the depth of conversation and all that stuff, I think it seems to be him. I mean, that's again something about trust, right?
So that's an LLM. Would it be funny if it was an LLM responding?
Yeah, but for an LLM, I think that's a too personal writing style to be an LLM. I think for LLMs, I think this is not the way
you could probably train it with his letters and
okay, yeah, if you have a very specialized one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I thought Alan Kay was dead. I didn't know he was alive.
No, he's not dead yet.
Thank God.
No, he's like 1940 or something born, and so he's still there.
A lot of those guys. My dad was born in 1940s. He's dead.
Okay.
A lot of those guys. A lot of those guys get heart attacks and stuff like that.
Yeah, true.
That was the nuclear age. People
since he's still alive.
I'm going to shower in uranium. I mean, that's all these guys. They're like so modern.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if he's still alive, then there's still the chance to write him an email and ask him if the answers on Quora are really his, and then and reason it with the trust issue that it could be anyone, right?
It could be, but if he's alive, well, I mean, good for him. He's a national treasure. So
if you anyone watching us right now and like the content we're doing here, like the discussion, hope you get some ideas out of the box, out of the daily chit chat, out of the daily commercialized super news, like here's the next great thing, eat it or die, but if we really provide something that makes you think, that makes you laugh, that makes you smile, then please hit the like button and show us some response that we know this episode is good, this episode may not be the one you liked, and so on. So then we really know how to adjust for future episodes, because we want to provide content that actually is for you, for the community, right?
Like the video, like it.
Now, and wear protection glasses at all times during home improvement.
Yes, exactly. All right. Listen, let me just run right into the next item, because we've spent a lot of time on the news here again, just like we did yesterday. And part of this is just the discussion we have. And I love the fact that we get a chance to share our thoughts with each other and have these discussions. And I would love to have more of these discussions with others in the community, because I learned so much from from you and Jan and anybody else that I talk to, because I'm not a genius like Alan Kay. So I need to talk to other people. I need to hear what they're saying, and I'm happy to learn. I do want to mention that we were going to be doing a piece today with Harry Adel. Harry had done an article, and do we have that on the list here that we could just click on so we could show people the article? So if you do that and you get it there, I will pop it up. Or otherwise, I can try to do it on mine. Let me see. Oh, it's where do I have it?
No worries, no worries. I put it
Yeah.
up in the
So
meantime.
Harry had written this article. I had an interview with Harry this week. I thought it was a really good engagement, and we spent a lot of time. It was great to hear from him his feedback on what motivated him to write this article. Some of the details that actually don't make it in the article, but are linked out to elsewhere, where he's able to find some interesting nuggets of information that inform the evolution and the development of Meteor. So I am not done editing the episode. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that we're a little late today is we're both to blame on that, but I'm still in the middle of editing the episode. It is not going to be a very, the rough cut of it is over 35 minutes. But when we're done, I think when we get it all nicely cleaned up and so on, it's probably going to be about 12 to 14 minutes altogether, and it's going to be good. What we've decided is, actually, because Harry's going into the depths of Meteor, is that this really belongs as a standalone deep dive episode for the Dispatches podcast. And so that's what we're going to do with it, besides the fact that we don't have it ready right now, or I don't have it ready right now. So I'm going to continue working on it over the weekend. We're going to release it. And my hope is that poor Harry has had to deal with our postponements today, and I understand entirely that it might be frustrating to him, but we're not forgetting this episode at all. We're going to give it its worth, which I think is it's worth standing on its own. And hopefully we may be able to get Harry in to give some additional color and have a conversation with the three of us simultaneously with any questions that the hosts have, or that we could bring from the audience, so that Harry can share what he has discovered with others. Okay? With that, I think we're going to move on to the next item. Our friend Dmitry Golev has created a new application. Some of you guys might have heard of it. It is called Meteor Files, and he has had it up on Product Hunt, and he is going full-blown into getting this out into the marketplace and getting it going. So should I he did a short video demonstrating it, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to just put that video up so that you guys can watch it, and then turn it over to Kuster.
We didn't get paid for that promotion, which is why there is no paid promotion banner anywhere.
That's right.
Just another, we're just promoting here. We're promoting anything comes up in the community, and this is just the hot stuff right now, right?
Yeah, eventually we will be doing paid promotions, but at this point, we're very happy to support members of the community that are building applications with Meteor, that are getting those applications out, they're trying to get to market, because we believe it's a great way to demonstrate to the world that you can actually do something commercial with Meteor and make a living with it. So let me drop that video. All right, so give me a second here and I will get it going. Okay. All right. Keep an eye, watch this.
Hello Alim, thank you for giving me a word. This is a short demo of Meteor Files. File upload and sharing service with unique features to resume interrupted uploads without losing any progress, even from another device. Here I am uploading a large archive, and suddenly I need to go. I can simply close the computer, pull out the USB stick with the original file, and change locations. While we're going, let me tell you about the technology behind this project. we are using MeteorJS, the full-stack JavaScript framework, which took care of the accounts, reactive database synchronization, WebSockets, and preprocessor languages like Sass and Jade. Here we are at the null location. To resume the file upload, all I need is just to plug in back the USB stick with the original file, go to the dashboard, select interrupted file upload, select the original file on USB stick, and just like that, upload resumes without losing any progress. The service is available now at MeteorFiles.com.
All right. So you might have heard him say that it's available at MeteorFiles.com. He forgot to put the hyphen in, which is why we have the banner down below. So if you're going to go check it out, please take a look below. If you go to Product Hunt and you click from there to MeteorFiles.com instead of going directly, I believe that there is a code that you can get to get a lifetime discount off the product. So just wanted to do that. Shout out to Dimitri. Hey, we hope you did some justice right here, and perhaps sometime in the future we can have you on to go further into Meteor Files. Okay, I'm going to go and get rid of that banner now. All right. So, is there anything you want to cover with this? On this?
I think we will cover that a lot in the future again.
Okay. All right. And at this point, well, let me ask you something. Typically right now, because we're doing resources, we'll usually do the conferences and the calls for papers, and then we'll go into other stuff afterwards. Do we want to do it that way, or do we want to just head on into Gabriel Gruba's update on Meteor 3.0?
Yeah, I think that would fit the update.
Should we do it now?
Yeah, I think
okay.
we could do that.
All right. So you want to introduce it? I'll just get it set.
Yeah, so we had recently, I can just briefly introduce it if you want. So there was this discussion on the Meteor 3.0 beta 6, and there were lots of questions that arose, not only on the beta, but also on the current Meteor versions. And Gabriel already said in the chat last time that he wants to make an answer on that. And he basically provided that in the form of a video.
Okay. So shall I play it now?
Yeah.
Hello there, my name is Gabriel Gruba, and today I'm here to answer a few questions that you have asked me on stream. And you may know me as one of Meteor's maintainers, and I'm also one of the advocates. I'm here to answer a few questions regarding our latest beta and Meteor 3 migration. One of the things that I wanted to say is, please migrate, test your app in the beta 6. It has one of the best, if not the best feature, is it's using the latest Node version and the latest NPM version. So that is the 20.11. And why is this nice? Because you have security updates there, and also you have a lot of performance updates. So please test it. You will be amazed of how things are getting better every day. And I wanted to say as well that I've seen people talk about it. They have like update, and they have told me they have updated a few pieces of their apps, and also in the past they have like already since the 2.8 they have been like syncifying a few pieces of their code, so they could test the latest beta version, and they are waiting for RC or a more stable beta so that they can push it to production. So they are already using it and testing it, and they are saying like Meteor 3 is real, like it's real, it's happening. So yeah, you guys can test it, and I beg you to test it, because yeah, whenever you test it and bring us issues, we get closer to a more stable one, because then we can solve the bugs, get to issues solved, and then we can have a better Meteor 3 version for you all. So whenever you test it, it doesn't have to be pushed to production so that your clients can see it, but you have tested locally or within your staging environment. So just test it. That's what I beg you. And I wanted to remind you all that the end of life for Node 14 is coming. So yeah, we should get it started. If you don't want to test the beta 3, at least a sync fire app, try to using async, and we'll get with this together. I'm here to help you. You can always ping me. You can always chat with me, either on Slack, either on forums. I will try to answer you as soon as possible.
Okay. So that was just the way that StreamYard closes down that video. He was saying that he'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. He wasn't running away. It's just when I see that, it is like so weird, right? It's like, it's like he took off, but it's a video. It's a video. I got to tell you, I love his energy, because there are two things that I think about when I see Gabriel sometimes in this like state. He's like so excited, like everything is moving so fast, and he's so young. So it's like when I was young, maybe I had such energy. I don't know. I don't think I ever had that much energy. My gosh, he's got such good energy. So, but he's there, and he is sincere, and he's a hard worker, and he wants to see this happen. So anyway, just kind of heed some of the stuff that he's mentioned in terms of looking at your own code, and knowing that Node 14 is not going to last forever. You want to do something about that. Anything else we want to point out from this?
No, I think it's very clear, and I mean, anyone who doesn't know, you can reach Gabriel over multiple channels in the Slack or in the forums, as he already also stated. Don't hesitate to write, and also don't hesitate to open up any open discussion in the forums or on GitHub discussions or whatever channel you like. The whole community is very open and engaging in any topic that comes up, right?
I'm just going to say, I know personally that, Gabriel is very open, that if you were having a problem with your application, you could go and couch surf at his house, like, stay with him, and he will work on your application with you. So just don't tell him I told you that. Okay. That's, he's looking for guests. I'm just kidding. I don't know. It's late. I'm feeling a little dizzy. I'm saying a lot of things right now, But in any case, so this is the bulk of our show at this point. This is the second half of what we started yesterday. Look forward to the standalone deep dive episode on the history of Meteor, where we've come from, some of the interesting things that have happened. Meteor wasn't always Meteor, as you'll find out, and so we should have some expectations that it will continue to evolve, and sometimes it won't be the thing that we actually started out loving. It might turn into something else. That's just the nature of things. I have a 20-year-old daughter now who has not exactly evolved the way I thought she would when she was 5 or 6, but she's still wonderful. But again, like I said, it wasn't what I predicted. That's just life. Okay. Maybe I've said too much. Anyway.
No.
We should she's a great kid, and I love her dearly, and she's going to be a wonderful independent human being one day. She's pretty much independent right now as it is, but I'm just saying, it's like, as a parent, and I see this as a software developer. When I built my first application, I intended it to be used a certain way, and it within 3 years was not being used the way I intended it, and it was a corporate app, and I was very upset with my users. And it was one of those things where I was not mature at the time. Still not mature. You could tell.
Yeah.
But,
seeing some intros, we can all tell.
but that's the thing. It's like, your children take on a life of their own. Software takes on a life of its own. It evolves the way it gets used and the way it gets adopted and so on. So we shouldn't always have the idea that the thing that we saw, that we fell in love with at the beginning, is going to be the thing that's going to be the same. That thing is going to be the same like 3-5 years later. So just keep that in mind. We would like you to check out our shorts from time to time. I'm not wearing mine right now. I'm wearing long pants. I don't know about you, Kuster. You're wearing shorts? We're talking about
Oh, I have to look what I'm wearing. Oh my God.
we're talking about YouTube shorts. Let's keep
Yep.
this G-rated, as they say.
Yep.
And actually, what I had planned initially was that Kuster, you would just kind of do a video walkthrough and show people how to like take one of our videos and create a short from it. But let's do that the next time, because I think we're
Yeah.
we're overstayed our welcome, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things I just want to remind people about is that this is open source software that we're talking about. And open source software is done by a lot of free labor, by a lot of people putting out their own goodwill and spending their time. Kuster and I are here on a Saturday. I don't know why we're doing this. He has a family. I have a family. I don't know if I still have a family because I'm here on a Saturday when I should be with them. But you get the point. We put efforts in because we love this community. We love doing what we do. And we've been raised in a way where we think that we should be giving back in some way because we've been blessed. But at the same time, it also means that, not everybody's as equally blessed. And sometimes what you could do is just show your appreciation through the sponsorships that are out there. If you know that one of your favorite open source software providers has a sponsorship, and our Jans and Gabrielle also have GitHub sponsorships, you could do a couple things. You could go and you could make a financial contribution and sponsor them, or you could click and give them a star. Right? GitHub stars actually are very useful. It's a great indicator that these are valuable people in the community. So if you don't feel like you have the resources to give a few dollars that could help buy them a coffee, a tea, or whatever it might be, then at least show your appreciation for the work that they do by giving a GitHub star and leaving them a
I
note.
also like to read a few books. If you have an interesting book to spare, I'm always open for interesting stuff to read.
There you go. So that's another way that you can sponsor a friend here. Help feed the hungry mind. Okay. And speaking of deep dives, we have an existing deep dive. Kuster, you want to talk about which one we think they should look at?
So besides the besides the deep dive that is related to the video interview with Harry, I was also thinking of doing a deep is it a deep dive or is it a hot topic? If I would say,
So if you look at the program, you'll see that there is a recommended deep dive that they should go and watch after this.
oh, sorry, I confused it right now because there was the of course there was the deep dive overview that you should watch it on MeteorJS 3.0 because Storyteller and I did already some deep dive series on certain topics. And if you haven't checked it out, you should do, especially if you're interested in the upcoming Meteor 3.0 release and what this is all about. We will also link it in the description or you check out our channel, you will also find it under the deep dive category. And
let me just, share it on the screen here so people know what we're talking about here. And let me just do a little back and forth so that they will see it. Okay, so we are here. So this is the MeteorJS community page. One of these days, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to actually show you folks, do a small episode that basically gives a tour of this. But we have our deep dives playlist, and if you go to the deep dive, let's see where it is. Deep dive playlists, right? We go over here. We'll see that we have one called the MeteorJS 3.0 overview, and you'll see it's got like a little diver in the background on that thumbnail. That's the one that we're suggesting you go and take a look at and watch, especially if you're new to Meteor or you're new to 3.0. It's worth taking a look. Okay. And just so that, we do have show notes that we follow here to kind of keep us honest as we go through this. But we have been talking about a lot of things today, and I understand the confusion. So, Kuster, what else should they do if they want to, interact with us?
Definitely leave a comment, or if you want to watch our stream the next time, you can also engage in the chat with us. We're usually responsive to anything that comes up in the chat and pick that up pick that up in the show. But also, if we're not live and you see anything that you would like to tell us, then leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay. We have, by the way, I just wanted to give a shout out to Kenton Hensley. I should put my glasses on, but I look really old when I do that. And so I'm trying to look, young for the ladies, but I don't know if any show up here. Thank you both. Enjoyed it. AI is everywhere. It's a systems requirement analyst. So we will, Kenton, this is just part and parcel of what we do here. We'll throw these up every now and then. Not a MeteorJS dev, but I admire the ideas that motivated development. Kenton, thank you so much. I really hope that you do spend a little time with Meteor. And but thank you for showing up today. Really appreciate it. And if you are not yet a member of this channel, please subscribe. Right now, we are at 172 members.
Yeah.
We're trying to get to 200 before the end of the month. So all of you out there that are watching this, whether it's live or the recordings, please go click on the subscribe button. It'll let you know when the next episodes come out. It'll also help us, get more recognized by the YouTube algorithm so that it recommends our streams to others.
Mm-hmm.
So that they can learn all about the wonderful things.
And of course, you always get notified when we are live. This is the most important.
Yeah. Sometimes we think we're dead, but we're alive.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Listen, I think we've taken enough of your time. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.
See you.